Well, hello guys. Today we're going to look at Bitcoin, the stock markets, and maybe a couple other coins. Things are sort of still grudging along, so why don't we get into it straight away? No messing about. Please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Thanks. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we are. We have the Bitcoin price and the 4-hourly. Look, let's go over a couple of things again. Looking at price compared to looking at price and including indicators. Okay, so when you look at the price here, if I was to just sort of maybe see if I can move that. Okay, I don't want to. Just looking at the price, it's looking very bullish. She's broken above this sort of resistance line here for quite some time. This has been running on since our first peak back in February 22nd of February. We had a peak around 14th of March. We had another sort of peak above around the 1st of April, 30th of March, and now we're having this again. Okay, so based on the price, you would say that it's extremely bullish. There's a lot of pressure, but something keeps sort of knocking it down quite regularly, and it's quite interesting. If we have a look on the daily, again, quite bullish. Everything's looking really, really good. Anyone who looks at this will be saying this thing's going to take off. And I am still in that boat that we should have a pretty good run up from this. But there's something not quite right about it to me. And as I've mentioned before, this is the the monthly, sorry. And on the monthly chart, we've had a lot of buying, but we're reaching this sort of top marker now, an indicator telling us that this is the end of a trend. For even if it's short term, we could have a 4-candle correction, just sort of pulls back a little bit and takes off. But being on the monthly, it could be a reasonably large one that people probably aren't expecting. There is a lot of bullish momentum out there. There's a lot of bullish attitude, but this is where you've got to be really, really careful. Okay, because I think Bitcoin is on thin ice. We have a look at the daily and the weekly. Sorry. Again. All these indicators, these time frames are showing us that Bitcoin is bullish, but because there's been so much over buying of the market, it's just been so hot lately. It is due for a bit of a pullback. Now, could we get this breakout? Yes, very possible. I think maybe will it go as high as 78? It'd be great, and it's very possible, but I'm just not sure. On the time frame, based on the time frames and things, if things keep going the way they are, there'll be a bit more of a pullback, I think. Like I said, skating on thin ice. So I would put it as, we're really kind of 50-50 on whether it's going to take off or whether it's going to drop. Okay. Looking at our indicators, this is still showing that there's I wouldn't say there's heavy selling pressure, but there's enough selling pressure that it's really sort of keeping this price down. It's getting a little sluggish now, and I think Bitcoin's it's really got really got the clock ticking against it. You know what I mean? So if we look at the daily, using our indicators now, not just looking at price, if we look at our indicators, which are not something you should put 100% reliance on, because I have seen, even in all this run up here, there's been times when Bitcoin, I thought would really drop down. I mean, you're talking here, if you have a look at the stochastic here, we got from the 8th of February to about the 21st of February. There's 2 weeks where it was just so overbought and still pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. And it was very hard when I work on the lower time frames to see that the lower time frames were starting to fall out of whack and the price was just going nuts. So I almost practically had to abandon my expectations on the indicator. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of at that point now. It's like, can I continue to rely on what I'm seeing in the indicators? Your volume's decreasing along here. Volume's decreasing. Doesn't mean a lot. The volume to me, it just doesn't mean a lot. The stochastic is showing that we have been on this incline, still working its way to the top. It's really now starting to come into this area where a lot of buying can really start happening. Okay, and it can get really sort of very, very bullish in this region. If you have a look here, I can't really use anything to highlight it, but once it starts getting to this sort of 70-80% overbought region, it really can take off here. If we look, there's a 45% boom in the last sort of 20% area of the stochastic. That's massive. That's huge. And we're kind of getting to that point again where it's really moving into that area of high, booming starts, and the buying can really start. So we can have this kind of takeoff up here. Okay? But like I said, we got this looming storm cloud that'll be there for some time. It's on the monthly. Really indicating that the trend is turning. The weekly doesn't indicate that as much. Okay, this is saying there's still plenty more upside, technically speaking. We've started a new count, but you can't discount a drop. Okay, you have to be aware that it's there. All right. So what that means is, if you're trading and you're using leverage, you need to really maybe use much smaller leverage and just be aware of the risks. You need to be aware that there's a looming danger there that could keep this price from really taking off where it could be going. So you need to really be more careful in your trades. You need to use your risk management and use it wisely. So I would say, I wouldn't leverage anything over 2 or 3x until you really get a proper confirmation that Bitcoin is going to take off. Still could be a little bit more time yet. We're on the hourly here, so 1 hourly. So you can see that Bitcoin really is working hard to try and get that price up, to get that boom going. This is the 4 hour. Still a reasonable amount of volume here going on. If you look at the stochastic, it's the 4 hours really showing that it's working against the price, or the price is working against the indicator. That should really be showing that there's a big sort of pull down in the price, but it's rebounding. I don't think it's a dead cat bounce at all, because dead cat bounces sort of happen around this region and take off and fight back. So, look, really with Bitcoin, I will just say that, look, the potential to break out is really big now. Potential to break down on a smaller time frame, not so big, but it can still happen. There's a lot of bullishness, but again, we just have to be careful. I think once we get over 62,000, I think then we will really, a lot of people will be happy, and we'll start to see it really take off. Once we get over that 62,000 mark, we've got to break through this region. We're very close. But yeah, you need to really be careful here, and maybe better off setting your long position, a smaller size long position with lower risk. Don't be greedy, guys. Maybe set it at 62, something like that, just above the breakout here, 62.3, something like that. If you're trading, if you're hodling, or if you just hold Bitcoin and buy in and out and just hold it without leverage, still doing those sorts of swing trades, doesn't matter so much. You can sort of hold this and maybe just have a manual sell if it's starting to sort of break down outside of here at 57. But you need to make your own decisions. You need to decide what's best for you and the way that you trade. I am optimistically bullish, but as far as is it going to 100,000 in the next month? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it'll make it. Is it going to 70,000 in the next month? There's a high chance. Is it going to say 80 and 90,000 in the next 2 months? No, I don't think so. I think it'll just get to around maybe the 60, 70 mark around here, and then she's going to pull back. That's my view, my opinion. That's what I'm thinking. And when we have a pullback, it'll be quite significant. Okay, let's go to Ethereum now. Ethereum, obviously, sort of playing the same boat as Bitcoin. It has broken out over its sort of resistance, and it's been above it for quite some time. It's really staying above the ribbons. Again, looking at price, you'd say it's really bullish, looking good to take off. But there again, there's this resistance in the market that just seems to be holding things back. Everyone can feel it. It's like, what is it? And you've got to realize there's some big shorters that have just come into the market. You got Michael Berry, you got George Soros. These guys are big shorters, and they tend to drive things bankrupt when they do it. Now, I think they're in for a bit of a shock if they're going to try and short Bitcoin. I think they're going to be in for a very serious shock. I mean, they might get some wins when it pulls back, but if they're in the wrong position and this takes off, they're going to get screwed, and I'll be happy when that happens. Anyway, as far as Ethereum, look, still, it's actually more over its resistance, and turning this area into support far more than Bitcoin is, I think. Bitcoin is still sort of in this resistance zone. I think Ethereum is sort of kind of broken out of that, and the market of altcoins potentially is sort of helping Ethereum sort of drive up, even with these big gas charges and things like that. But look, it's very difficult to say. If you have a look at the monthly, Ethereum is in the same position as Bitcoin. It's topping out. I think there may be another pullback. Could be quite significant. But when this is going to happen, timing is the hard thing. Because it's on the monthly, I think it's just going to take its time. The first initial drop, you will see it sort of maybe come back to this area. So that's technically about a $200 pullback. And then we'll probably start to see it move down again. But when is this going to happen? I don't think it's that far off. We've got to get to the end of April. This is for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Got to get to the end of April to see what this candle's going to do. If there's going to be any kind of continuation or a new count, like a new count reset. Hard to say, You just have to know that it's there and be ready for it. On the weekly Ethereum, the stochastic is starting to sort of come back a little bit. We have seen decline in volume, but the volume is still hanging in there and giving it that push. I think Ethereum could sort of have a nice little pump. Where to? Hard to say. Maybe 26? Yeah, it might have a nice breakout to 26, maybe even reach 28. Kind of reach this region here. We'll just have to wait and see, because the weekly comes up and really starts pumping, well, then it could really take off. But because of this monthly, I think that's what's holding everything back, as well as some big short players in the market. Daily, we're still in that really sort of overbuying territory here. Okay, still looking good, still looking strong. But we just got to watch out. Like I said, I think these top coins are really starting to skate on thin ice as time gets along. If there's not a big response soon, I think it will start pulling back, and I think this breakout here will fail. But again, like generally I'm bullish, but it's all a matter of time, not so much price now. You know what I mean? For me, it's a matter of time, not price. And it really needs to start taking some action soon, and then getting to some really overbought territory along here. We might have a nice week of good buying, with price rising and things, but I think time is getting limited. Okay. What I'm going to also do now at the moment is let's go to the S&P, the American stock market. And you'll see here, now people like Tone Vays are saying, it's going to keep going up and going up and going up. It may do that. But I think it's starting to, again, from the daily at least, get an overbought region. We might, by the end of this week, see it start maybe pulling back a little bit. If we have a look on the weekly, again, a bit more room to move, but it's still really kind of getting into that overbought region again. This market has just been going up and up and up. Let's see what kind of percentage since COVID outbreak there, the stock market's up 80%, you know, and that's in a year, less than a year, which is just crazy, man. That's huge, you know. 80% rise in a year, that's nuts. So with all the printing, you know, the money printing and things like this, you know, you could be seeing a bit more of a flow-on effect into the market. But I think, you know, things are going to start topping out maybe by May, this month. Here's a 4 hour, so we may even see a bit of a pullback this week. Maybe a pullback to around 40,078, sorry, 4,078. You know, see a bit of a drop here. So I think all up, the end of April, sort of maybe mid-April to the end of April, could be quite a bumpy ride. You know, I think it might get really volatile. You're going to probably see some drops down and some pushes up. People are going to be trying to push. Others are going to be really knocking it down. So we're going to have to see where that goes. But I think she's running out of time. We're really on borrowed time. That's the message for this video, I think. Okay. Why don't we have a look at a couple of other coins here? Actually, let's look at the Australian stock market first. Australian stock market not responding in the same way as the US market, but pretty close. You know, it's having its doubts and blooms and things, but we are a series of 9 counts on both the US market and this. Now running through a sort of a bit of a 4-candle correction here, or will it move more into a trend change and sort of keep dropping back a little bit? Hard to say. I think the best thing to do is have a look at the daily and the weekly. Again, a bit more room to move on the daily. Okay, you can see this motion again, up, down, up, down, up, down. So it's pretty choppy weather. There's a lot of people being bullish, trying to push this price up more. A lot of the big companies probably getting bullish. I think in the US it might be tax season coming up too, end of April. So you might see this push continue on into April to the end, and then by May, we might see in May, June, July, we might see this big pullback coming, and we're not sure what's in store for it after that. But first, the Australian stock market. The Australian stock market tends to sort of pull back while the US is going big, and then they swap around. But if the US drops big, then that affects all markets around the world. And then they start to respond differently, you know. Anyway, let's have a look at the weekly. Again, this is the Australian stock market. And again, yeah, a bit more room to sort of push up there. It's starting to break an all-time high here, so that could be quite bullish for the stock market. You know, we could see a bullish run, but I don't think so. We just have to wait and see. You know, it's getting very, very difficult to determine. Again, a normal person just looking at the price would say, this is bullish, it's breaking a previous high, it's really coming up to sort of push against it, it's been working against it for a while, the ribbons are looking good, there's a lot of strength there, but the problem is there's not a lot of confidence in the markets. Maybe among politicians there is, but a lot of people are very uncertain of, you know, are we going to be open again next month? Do we have the same support from the government funding that we've been getting? No, some companies have it, some don't, most don't now. So, it's in Australia. So, you know, it's becoming a multi-geared economy where some are doing well, some are doing terrible, some are surviving, others are staying pretty steady. So it used to be a 2-geared economy, now I think we've got a multi-geared economy, and sooner or later, it's, you know, if it can't balance itself, it's going to cause some problems, you know. And I think we're at the beginning of seeing those sorts of problems maybe manifest. I think by June, July, for the Australian stock market, we might see some changes. The US stock market might be a little earlier, but I really think from mid-April to maybe mid-May, there's going to be a lot of volatility in the market. So probably want to be pretty careful. Do a good assessment of the stocks that you have, okay? See where they're going up, see what they're looking like. Have a look on their the weekly charts, see where they're going. Monthly you can have a look, like here's a monthly on the stock market as well. Not that important really. Still pretty strong, looking pretty good. Reaching a 9. There's still a fair bit more upside there. We've got a fair bit of support around this region here. It can hold support, pull back. Not a big deal, but that's where it's looking at the moment. So we are testing this previous high and this level of resistance here, broken through it. Now I think we need to sort of rest and cool off, and then depending on how that happens, we could see a bit more of a rise up. So that's the stock markets there as well. If you have any interest in me looking at a specific stock or something like that, let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do in the videos that follow. Okay, so let's have a bit of a look at Cardano. Cardano's just taken off, looks crazy, but let's go on the lower time frame. So Cardano is still working in this ascending triangle. It's had a couple of breakthroughs. Again, looking at the price, it looks really bullish. We looked at this price the other day. A potential target is $1.80. Okay, $1.90. Question is, can it make it? Can it break this resistance, or are we going to see it sort of dip down a bit more again, come back down to here, and then just sort of work its way up? If it breaks above, I think she's going to sit nicely on top. And it may just consolidate for a little while before we get that final takeoff. Again, depends on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has a big sort of breakout, then the other coins will move with it, probably earlier than expected. On the 4 hour, 4 hours looking a little bit more bearish. Okay, we've got a higher wick, and now we've got this gravestone doji popping up here. Got a red 1 count starting, so we might see a bit more bearish action on Cardano. It's had a good pump, so if you want to sort of maybe jump out and then wait for it to come back down and buy back in 20 cents chip, you might save yourself a few bucks. On the stochastic, looking very bearish. This is a bit more of a downward type move, and looking a bit more bearish on the time frames there. If we go to the daily, see what's above it. Always look above and below, see what's going on. So the daily is still quite bullish. Still a fair bit of buying momentum there, but again, we're seeing this sort of gravestone doji just sort of popping up here. The price really needs to sort of break through this area. Otherwise, I think she'll just sort of end up pulling back a little bit more again down to here. If we go to the 1 hour, if you're doing a bit of trading, okay, 1 hour is getting a bit more bearish. We're starting to see that play out at the moment. I suppose you could call this a double top or an M pattern. Okay, and they usually are bearish indicators, but look, when I say bearish, I don't think this is going to be dropping out below our resistance down here. I think it's definitely going to stay in the band and work its way up. I think Cardano is pretty bullish. Let's have a look at the weekly, actually. Yeah, I can't get a lot on the stochastic for the weekly, but I think it's playing out nicely so far. We've got a new count on the weekly, so we've got the 1, 2, 3. So if we can get up to maybe a 6 or a 9, there's still certainly more potential there for it to keep rising. Got some nice volume bars here for the bullish side of things. So Cardano, I think, is generally going to stay more bullish. Okay, longer term, OMG, and simply OMG. So it's sort of hit the top of its channel here, had a big pump up, and then it's pulled back. Is it still bullish? I think it is, given this, but the wick is a bit of a warning sign to say it's really had a big run, and now it sort of wants to cool off a little bit. So we might start seeing it come down. Let's have a look at the lower time frames. Yeah, starting to get a bit more bearish, pulling back. That's okay. We might just come back to maybe sort of this area of sort of support here, and $7.40. Yeah, might not pull that back far. Maybe $8.10 is probably more likely. Just see how we go. 4 hour looks pretty bullish, but we've had this big sort of pullback here, this big sell-off, end of a cycle, but it's starting another red count, so there may be shorter counts, but I think you might get another 9 count here and pull it back to this region, maybe $8.40. So OMG looking a bit bearish, probably time to take some profit. profit time would have been taken around the $10 here. That's what's worth looking at. Link. Now Link's been a bit choppy up and down, had some nice runs that you could have traded there, but all in all, look at the daily on this. Having a look at Link, again, starting to create this, there's a lot of ascending triangles being created in this market, in the crypto market, guys. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Huge triangles being formed. You know what I mean? This is probably not the best. Probably not a good one here. Maybe you can take it just from here if you wanted to, or maybe here. It's a better one. Like that. You know what I mean? Again, hitting the top, but it's always getting to the 9 counts when it's hitting the top. We've got a 13, so it usually indicates a reverse of the trend, but not always, But there is a bit more bearishness starting to happen on the daily time frame for a Link, but all in all, yeah, look, if you're holding Link, just be careful. You might have a bit more of a pullback down to sort of this region here, the 29. If the overarching time frame here starts forcing that down, which you might start seeing, okay? Again, there's in a lot of these indicators to the price, there's a lot of contradiction between price and the indicators. And I would always probably trust price a little bit more, but know that the indicators is a future reading, is showing you what's more likely on the cards. But they're a late responder, but they do show more activity of what's more likely to come, And you can kind of give yourself a bit more of a prediction where it's likely to go if things should fail, okay? All in all though, you've got a pretty bullish sort of price happening here. Would I keep running that? Well, you're going to have to go to lower time frames. If we go to the hour, which doesn't show you a lot, hour's starting to sort of have a bit of a bottom out, might sort of skate along. There is a bit of support along here, as you can see. It's just going to keep working inside this triangle. If you're holding it long term, it doesn't really matter. If you're trading it, I would expect a little bit more down before it turns around. Even the 4 hours showing a reasonable amount of turning around here, so it could get a little more bullish. Maybe it'll sort of try and push up back to 33. That wouldn't be a bad little trade, depending on how much you actually got. That 3%. Yeah, a $10,000 trade on there, 3% would be all right. In the next sort of 6 hours. Who knows? Let's go to a lower count. Let's have a look. Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't do it. Okay, we're seeing this change in trend, so I think there's more of a likelihood that Link will be continuing down for a little bit longer, maybe down to around this region. Might test some of these lows here. Okay, but so we're definitely looking between maybe the 31.5 cents, $33, sorry, $31 to maybe a $33 range. I think it's still going to keep playing in here for a little while. Again, sort of comes back to what Bitcoin and Ethereum start doing. Let's have a look at one more. Let's have a look at Engine. Engine's looking pretty bullish. It's struggling to get over this, well, I should say fighting to get over this lower band here. It's kind of stuck between the ribbon and the band, so the price can sort of bounce around a little bit and get choppy. If we go to the 4 hour, bit more of a bullish signs here for a nice sort of run up. You've got one thing too is try to find your areas where you're likely to get resistance. When you're trading and stuff. Even if you're just buying in and out. You can see that there's a bit of resistance around this line, around here. So $3 to $3.20. Again, that's not a bad little sort of trade if you, depending on what leverage you're using and things like that, that's 5%. You put 10,000 on that, you can pull yourself $450 in the next 8 hours. They're kind of little things that I do sometimes. Like, oh yeah, you have that one, make you $500 if you want to put that much into it. It's probably a lot of money for some people. So most people to put on a coin that's a little bit more volatile, we shall we say. So all in all, guys, I think that's the best look at the market that we can sort of do here. Engine, I think, might move up into this $3.47 range, would be great. On the daily, I'm expecting this to come down, have a little bounce, and maybe keep moving up, because the engine is quite bullish. It's still really just starting a boom. There's plenty more room for this to go. If you're using the Elliott wave, you could go 1, 2, 3, like this, and you go 1, 2, 3. I should just use the Elliott wave thing, shouldn't I? 4 and 5. It could be looking at something like that. You know what I mean? So could engine go up 100% from here? Look at the weekly. Yeah, maybe. It's on a 13. Maybe it'll pull back. Maybe it's had its 5. Four-way run. So they're the things that you can just work out for yourself. Have a bit of a look. Look on the 1 hourly. 1 hourly is still pretty bullish because there's so much pressure. They're trying to break these bands. A lot of these bulls are trying to break through on so many different coins, so many different levels. They're all trying to break through and break this resistance. There's I don't know if it's just a mental resistance or if there's just a really big load of sort of short positions waiting there to sort of try and knock the price down a bit. Don't really have a lot of information coming out at the moment on where things are or why it's really holding back. But when it does break through, I think we'll see some pretty nice gains for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, if we're lucky. It's hard for me to hold something for 2 to 3 weeks. I usually hold, unless it's Bitcoin, I usually hold things for maybe a couple of days, as short as 8-12 hours, up to maybe 2 weeks, depending what it is, where it's going. That's just the way that I trade. When I trade, So I hope that's been helpful for you. If it's given you a bit of insight, again, please like, subscribe, share, let people know Bitcoin Bankers gives you an honest price. We're not going to just blow smoke up your butt. We're not going to come on with silly sirens and pictures and all these sort of crazy things just to get your interest. If you have a look at a lot of other people's YouTube channels, they're just every day, Bitcoin's going up, Bitcoin's going up, blah, 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 blah. Every day, just bullshit. And they don't know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But if you do good analysis and you do the best analysis that you can with the information and indicators that you have, then you'll have a much better chance, and you can just drain out that noise, okay? Because a lot of those channels are just noise. They got 300,000 subscribers, 500,000 subscribers, and they just talk rubbish all the time. Like we saw predictions for Ethereum going to 27,000. It's just, I don't see that. It's just not going to happen. Bitcoin going off 500,000. It's very unlikely, especially this year anyway. Very, very unlikely this year. So look, at the end of the day, we just have to wait and see where it goes. Just keep making your shorter term trades. Look at trying to just build up your account a little bit, make some money if you're using your profits for whatever. But look, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bitcoin Bankers, check us out. Cheers.